Hello, Scott Conway, mothersraisingsons.com, and we are continuing our discussion of the 4P360 leadership system. This is my proprietary leadership system that I teach. Today we're talking about an ever-expanding toolbox. Now, one of the things about the 4P360 system is it does have a comprehensive toolbox. Now, this is part of why the toolbox is so easily comprehensive, is any one tool is multiplied by 7. Because we have all these directions. If you get one tool, and we're going to use one tool as an example, my most popular tool, my most in-demand tool, is basically, how do I fire someone? So the business version is, how do I fire someone? But there's also other variations. How do I quit? How do I get off of a project? How do I let someone go off of a project or off of a particular management team, or get rid of someone off a committee or get off of a committee? How do I decide if I'm going to let myself off the hook on something, and how am I going to work with other people when maybe they're trying to get off or they're trying to get me off of something. And of course, the kid version of what if you're going to have to end a friendship and you need to teach your child how to end a friendship or break up a relationship. And here's the great thing is the principles are all the same. So here's the short version of the firing one. And I had to teach this one to a client because they had someone they had to fire and they didn't want to fire them. It was going to be a difficult discussion. The leader didn't like having these kind of negative discussions. Instead, he ended up leaving the guy sitting out in a chair for 4 hours waiting to get fired. So here's a short version of how ultimately it went. Once I had the information, I did a couple of firings for him, and then I coached him through others so he could see how to do it. And essentially, we just had a discussion about, what does the job take? And we told him, okay, the job requires, as you know, we need this, 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 and this. Now, these are the things we have to know. We've been having a problem over here. Now, you work on a team. When you don't show up on time, when you don't get this piece together and you can't be there on time, it idles the whole team. Nobody's making money. And if the team is being paid based upon the work the team gets done, when the team can't work, their time is obligated because they have to be here. But if you get paid at the conclusion of a project, that means that you're eating up time you're not getting paid for. So it's not fair to them. Of course, it's not fair to the company because we can't schedule things if we don't know when our teams are going to be idle or not idle. And it makes it very, very difficult. So we really do need these things. We're sure there's a perfectly good reason why it hasn't happened up until now. And what we need to find out is, going forward, is this something you're capable of assuring us you're going to be able to do? And in this case, there wasn't. And he really did honestly have a very good reason he couldn't do what the company needed him to do. And so he says, okay, well, that puts us in a couple of problems. One, of course, is, you can't do the job. If you can't do the job, then, of course, we can't have you on the work team. You could decide, if you would prefer, we could fire you if that's what you would like, or you could choose to quit. You could just tell us, okay, I know this is what the job requires. It requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I can't do 6 and 7. And because I can't do 6 and 7, I'm going to resign my position. I'll go find a job somewhere else that I know that I can do. Now, if you put us in the position where we have to fire you, obviously if someone calls us, one of the questions very often they ask is, would you hire this person back? That would have to be a no. But if you take responsibility for what it is you could not do, and you say, I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it, this isn't working out, I did my best, thank you for the opportunity, and you head it out. If you come back to us and say, now I can do it, and we have an opening, well, of course we would hire you back, and we would tell them so that, if you treat your next employer with the same dignity and respect we're asking for here, of course we would hire you back, and we would tell them the same thing. That you're someone who takes responsibility. You're someone who understands the job has certain requirements, and if you can't do it, you'll come tell the boss you can't do it. If it's something that can be fixed with some training, you have some questions, you need some additional resources, that you tell them so that they know. And if you just can't do a part, that's okay too. Just let us know and make a decision accordingly. So which way would you rather go? Because we want to make sure we take good care of you as we separate. And of course, so far everyone's chosen to resign because, at least under California law and the way things work around here, if you're fired for a cause that you're not doing the job, then you're not going to be able to collect the unemployment anyway. And if you quit, you're not going to collect it. So it's really just a matter of how does it look. Now, based upon union contracts or based upon, individual state laws and regulations that might apply industry by industry, you might need to do it a little bit different. But that's essentially how that works. But you notice this is essentially how you end every relationship. So if I'm leading up, I might go to my boss and I'll tell my boss, okay, this is what it seems like the job requires. I can't do these parts. So either I need my job to be changed or I'm going to have to step down from that particular job or that particular aspect. Now maybe another job might be better. And you do it, showing respect and do it with some dignity so that you don't end up getting fired for cause, and you try to make some negotiation. Like, if I had this available, if we can tweak it this way, if I can have maybe a flexible schedule, if I can have some additional training, some additional resources made available to me, if I can have an assistant, if I'm allowed to tap across to another part of the company. And the same thing if you're trying to get rid of someone off of a project, or you're trying to get yourself off of a project. If you're trying to make a decision for yourself, okay, for me, self-leadership. What does this require in order for me to do this? Can I change the job? Or do I have to just say, okay, I can't do it, and basically fire myself or quit whatever the goal was I was intending on doing, or put it off for another time? And this particular tool, because now you can do it in every direction. You got 7 directions. If you need to do something downward diagonal or upward diagonal, if there's committees, if there's projects or anything that you're engaged with these other people, if you have things going on where this is the way things get done, is you have control down, but you need to get the information across. But that's really not working. And you can talk about, okay, this seems to require this. It's not really working. We need to not be doing it this way anymore, and do it a different way. So essentially, it's we need to fire the process. So it's similar to getting rid of the person, that this process isn't working, and we need to build a different way of doing it. And the process is exactly the same. You build the picture. You say, okay, this is what it does take. This is what the gap is. Can we bridge the gap and make this work for us? And because of the way the 4P360 system works with a 00, every one tool has 7 applications. And even bigger than that, because it works on principles, you can break them into pieces and use pieces of it, or do it in 3 steps instead of 1 step, or do it in 1 step instead of 2 steps, and all of these options. So the gentleman in Chicago, said, well, that's not going to work for me. We already have a combative relationship. It's already gone toxic. I can't afford to burn the bridge. Because, I already have 1 burned bridge, and I work in a fairly small community, and if you burn too many bridges, then all of them could go up. You could lose all of your opportunity. Well, what do I do? And we just took exactly this technique I was just sharing with you. We broke it into 3 pieces and made it into 3 separate conversations. My son, using a very similar process when he just ended his last romantic relationship, is he laid out with his girlfriend when things were going on that he wasn't happy with, and that for him were deal breakers, and said, okay, I love you, and you're my friend. I want to have this relationship. These are very serious problems for me, and if this is going to continue to be a part of this relationship, then we can't continue as boyfriend and girlfriend. And she changed for a little while, and then she went back to her normal, that for her, that was normal. And which is, by the way, it's okay. It's not just a matter of good or bad, it's just for me, as your boyfriend, this is what I do want, and this is what are deal breakers for me. Just like any woman, of course, has the right to say, okay, what is it that you have to have in a relationship, and what are deal breakers for you? And she thought that, okay, I can do that, and she did it for a while, but it really, honestly, it wasn't her. And so the relationship ended, and they had a separate discussion about that. And so, okay, well, I know you thought you could and that you really wanted to, but, this is just who you are, and that's perfectly okay. It's just not boyfriend and girlfriend stuff for me. And so we can, of course, continue to be friends, and, they are friends, and he does still like her as a friend, and they do still get along when they do see each other. But they're no longer involved in a committed romantic relationship. Same technique. And so beautifully executed. So 4P360 leadership system is a comprehensive leadership toolbox, because every tool goes in 7 directions, so multiply every tool by 7, and because they work on principles, you can break them up and apply them differently. Scott Conway, mothersraisingsons.com.